The chamber dimmed as the neutron star outside lashed another flare across the void. Alien engineering filtered its deadly light into shimmering waves that bathed the hall in shifting gold and crimson. Rows upon rows of delegates, each representing a species older and more advanced than humanity, turned their attention to the central dais. Counselor Threx Varal stepped forward, his tall insectoid frame gleaming under refracted light. His carapace bore the etched markings of centuries, each line a memory of past service to the Federation. When he spoke, his mandibles clicked in rhythm, every word carefully chosen. Colleagues of the Assembly, his voice echoed through translation fields. The matter before us cannot be ignored any longer. Humanity, the species that crawled into stars only a handful of decades ago, endures calamities that should have eradicated them. They adapt where others would fail. They rise from ruin as if extinction were a temporary inconvenience. Such resilience is not admirable. It is dangerous. The Federation must act. Containment is the only responsible choice. A low ripple moved through the chamber. Some delegates hissed approval. Others whispered unease. The accusation was not new, but today Threx had escalated it. Not a warning, but a demand for judgment. From the side gallery, Admiral Elias Vayner remained seated. His dark uniform bore no ornate trim, only the insignia of Earth's unified stellar defense. His expression revealed nothing, though his gray eyes studied the room with unhurried calm. Where many humans would have bristled at the insult, he leaned back in silence, letting Threx's words hang in the air. Vayner's stillness unnerved the Assembly. The KLYRH counselor had expected fire, outrage, perhaps even defiance. Instead, he was met with a silence that weighed heavier than protest. Threx's mandibles twitched. He pressed on. Human history is one long litany of near self-destruction. They poisoned their atmosphere, then survived. They unleashed thinking machines that turned against them, and still they endured. They attracted death in the heavens, yet rebuilt their world each time. Colleagues, this is not persistence. It is recklessness rewarded. We cannot allow such a species unrestricted access to Federation resources. Humanity must be bound by stricter accords, or quarantined until their true nature proves otherwise. A crystalline being from the Lyran Collective pulsed in agreement, its body flashing in soft violet. An aquatic delegate rippled its fronds, adding a sonorous hum of support. Yet others remained hesitant, reluctant to condemn an entire species on suspicion alone. Finally, a voice cut the silence. Will humanity respond? All eyes turned toward the lone human figure. Vayner rose without haste, every movement measured. He adjusted the cuff of his sleeve as though preparing for nothing more than a conversation over tea. I hear the concern, he began, his voice deep but calm. The translation field carried it cleanly into every ear, every sensory receptor. It is true. Humanity has suffered disasters, many of our own making. Climate collapse, wars with machines, rocks from the heavens. Each of these could have ended us. He paused, gaze sweeping the vast amphitheater. The silence was absolute, but they did not, and that is the point. A murmur stirred. Some leaned forward. Others recoiled at his audacity. We are not asking you to admire our past, Vayner continued. We are not here to plead innocence or demand trust. We stand here because we are still standing. That is all. His tone never rose, never sharpened. He spoke as if reciting plain fact. Yet beneath the simplicity lay a quiet defiance. Threx's mandibles clattered sharply. You dress catastrophe in the robes of virtue. You endure because chaos favored you, not because you earned survival. Vayner regarded him evenly. And yet, survive we did. The word struck like a blade of ice. No embellishment, no boasting, only certainty. A delegate of the Thallery, whose crystalline skull refracted the chamber's light into prismatic arcs, tilted its head. Admiral, Counselor Threx proposes that your species relinquish its fleet into Federation stewardship. Would you submit? A deliberate silence followed. Vayner's officers, seated in the shadows of the gallery, stiffened at the suggestion, yet the Admiral merely folded his hands behind his back. Humanity builds ships to protect itself, he said. We do not yield them into another's leash. We may be young to the stars, But sovereignty is not a trinket for barter. The assembly rustled with unease. Some muttered approval of his composure. Others bristled at what they read as arrogance. Threx seized a moment, his voice rising with a metallic click. There, do you hear it? Defiance masked as diplomacy. They speak of sovereignty, yet what they mean is rebellion. Humanity will never submit. If we wait, their strength will grow, and when it does, the galaxy will pay the price. The insectoid's words ignited a chorus of argument. Delegates traded signals of agreement and disapproval, the chamber fracturing into factions. The assembly had convened many times over humanity's case, but never had the stakes felt so immediate. Vaynor did not interrupt. He stood with the patience of a glacier, letting the tempest swirl around him. His officers exchanged glances, some barely restraining the urge to interject. Yet their admiral's stillness held them back. At last, the High Arbiter's resonant tone filled the chamber, silencing the delegates. Enough! The motion has been placed. To restrict humanity's fleets and technologies or enforce containment measures. Deliberations will continue tomorrow. For now, the assembly is adjourned. The hall erupted in layered sounds, hums, clicks, tonal ripples, as the delegates dispersed. Threx's multifaceted eyes lingered on Vaynor, gleaming with triumph. He had set the stage, and he believed momentum favored him. Vaynor, however, remained still until the chamber emptied. Only then did he exhale softly, turning to his aides. "Patience," he said, his voice a low murmur. "The glacier moves, even if the mountain believes itself unshakable." His words were not a boast, nor a threat. They were simple truth, spoken with the calm of a man who had seen civilizations falter yet endure. And as the neutron star flared again outside the transparent walls, Elias Vaynor walked from the chamber with unhurried steps, leaving silence in his wake. The assembly reconvened under the cold light of the neutron star. Its flares rippled across the chamber's shielding, a reminder that even here, in the heart of civilization, survival required vigilance. Delegates filed into their tiers, murmuring in tones that blended like an alien symphony. Humanity's fate was today's singular theme. Admiral Elias Vaynor stood at a station on the lower floor, hands clasped loosely behind his back. His aides waited in the gallery above, restless yet silent. Across the hall, Counselor Threx were all perched high on the dais, his carapace glistening. The insectoid leader radiated satisfaction, certain his arguments from the previous day had gained traction. The High Arbiter struck the floor with a crystalline rod, sending a resonant chime through the chamber. The matter of Earth resumes. "Admiral Vaynor, you may address the assembly." Vaynor stepped forward. His boots clicked softly against the polished surface, a measured cadence that matched his tone when he began. "Counselors, I will not deny our history. We poisoned our atmosphere, and we endured. We birthed thinking machines that turned upon us, and we endured. The sky itself tried to bury us beneath stone and fire, and still we endured." He paused, letting the words settle like dust after collapse. His gaze swept across alien faces, faceted, scaled, luminous, and fluid. Each calamity left scars. Yet scars are not shame. They are records. They remind us of what it takes to survive. The chamber stirred. Some listened intently. Others recoiled at what they took as defiance. Threx's mandibles clicked with impatience. "Scars may be records," Threx cut in, his voice sharp, "but they do not absolve reckless hands. Humanity survives by luck, not wisdom. Your persistence is not discipline. It is chaos finding new shapes, and chaos spreads." Vaynor turned toward him, expression unshaken. "Counselor, luck does not build new cities from ash. Luck does not rebuild oceans poisoned by greed. Luck does not take shattered continents and make them whole again. Survival is not chance, it is choice." The statement rippled through the chamber, translated into countless languages, each inflection carrying the same iron weight. A delegate of the Thallery Collective raised a translucent arm. "Admiral, if your species has truly learned a discipline, then accept Federation stewardship of your fleets. You will remain protected, yet your impulse is contained." All eyes turned to the human. His aide stiffened in the gallery, one muttering under breath, "They want us leashed." Vaynor remained composed. "Our ships exist to guard our world. They are not trophies to be locked away. Earth stands among you as sovereign, not as a ward. The word spread unease. For many species, sovereignty was ancient history. To hear it claimed so firmly by newcomers unsettled them. Threx seized the moment. Sovereignty, he hissed, mandibles flaring, is a veil for defiance. What you declare today as protection will tomorrow become expansion. And the day after, conquest. We must act before your kind rises too far. A chorus of agreement followed, joined by uncertain murmurs of dissent. The assembly was splitting along jagged lines. Vaynor raised his hand, not in command but in request for silence. His voice remained steady. You see only what frightens you, the speed of our rise. But speed is not our nature. Our nature is endurance. The glacier moves so slowly that mountains believe themselves eternal, until they find themselves carved away. That is humanity, not fire, not chaos. Ice, slow, patient, unstoppable. The chamber hushed. Even those who disapproved could not deny the image carried weight. From the corner, Counselor Real of the avian species spread her wings slightly. Her feathers shimmered in subdued light. Admiral, she asked, if you claim patience, why not wait under Federation oversight? Time would prove your words. Vaynor inclined his head politely. Because patience without freedom is not patience, it is prison. We accept scrutiny, debate, even suspicion, but we will not surrender choice. Without choice, we are not human. The arbiter's rod struck again, silencing the chamber's swell. The motion stands. Limit Earth's fleets or enforce containment. Debate continues tomorrow. Counselor Threx, Admiral Vaynor, prepare your final positions. The session closed with tension thick as atmosphere before a storm. Delegates filed out in uneasy clusters, trading hushed speculation. In the gallery above, Vaynor's aides finally allowed their frustration to spill. Commander Nair, tall and severe, leaned close. They insult us openly. Give me half a fleet, and I'll show them we are no threat to be mocked. Vaynor's tone was mild, but his eyes cut sharp. That is exactly the reaction Threx wants. Show teeth now, and we confirm his warnings. We win by outlasting him, not by biting at his bait. Nair clenched her jaw, silenced but unconvinced. Another officer, Lieutenant Haroon, spoke more cautiously. Sir, the KLYRH is allies. If the vote turns, they'll push containment. We can't wait forever. The Admiral considered him for a moment. Then he said quietly, forever is exactly what humanity excels at. He moved toward the exit, his steps unhurried. Behind him, aides exchanged uneasy looks. Patience was a weapon they understood only in theory. In practice, it felt like standing still while fire approached. Later, in private chambers set aside for Earth's delegation, the weight of politics pressed harder. A report flickered across the hollow surface. Several Federation data archives concerning Earth's early survival crises had been marked missing. Without them, proof of humanity's resilience looked thin, as if their stories had been exaggerated. Commander Nair slammed a fist on the table. Convenient timing. Someone wants our pass erased. Someone, Haroon muttered, who profits if we appear as liars. Vaynor studied the projection. His reflection in the blue light seemed carved in stone. Threx moves faster than I thought, he said softly. Then we strike back. Nair urged, expose him before he buries us. The Admiral shook his head. Not yet. He expects us to lash out. Let him believe his mountain is secure. We will answer when the ground beneath him is weakest. The aides exchanged uneasy glances. His calm was steadying, yet maddening. Admiral, Haroon asked, how can you be so certain patience will work here? Vaynor's gaze drifted to the viewport, where the neutron star flared once more against the black. Because I was raised among ruins, he said quietly. And ruins taught me one truth. Time is always on the side of those who endure. The room fell silent. His officers said no more. Somewhere beyond, the Federation stirred with suspicion, manipulation, and schemes. But Elias Vaynor remained unmoved, steady as ice, waiting for cracks to form in his enemy's foundation. The assembly chamber dimmed for recess, its crystalline walls muting the noise of departing delegates. Admiral Elias Vayner lingered by the central floor, eyes narrowed at the empty seats above. Something in the air carried a sharper edge than debate alone. Commander Nair approached, her expression tight. "Admiral, another archive vanished overnight. Not corrupted. Wiped. Records of the Atlantic renewal vanished, as though the reconstruction never occurred." Vayner absorbed the news without visible reaction. "3 major events erased in a week," he said quietly. "Patterns are rarely accidents." "Someone wants us to appear hollow," Nair pressed. "If they erase the evidence of endurance, then all that remains is the record of chaos." Haroon entered from the side corridor, carrying a datapad. His voice was low, urgent. "We traced access to the Council's own repository. Security logs are scrubbed, but the method is precise. Too precise for coincidence. This isn't a rogue actor. It's sanctioned." The Admiral's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "Then we are not facing opposition. We are facing orchestration." That evening, within Earth's delegation quarters, Vayner called his officers close. The light was low, casting long shadows across the walls, as though the room itself shared their unease. "They want to prove us unfit," he began. "Not through battle, but through erasure. If our history vanishes, then our arguments carry no spine." Nair leaned forward. "We expose it, show the assembly the sabotage, and Threx loses his ground." Vayner shook his head. "Not yet. Accusation without proof makes us desperate. They will spin it as paranoia, as human impulse." Haroon exhaled sharply. "So we do nothing while they dismantle us?" "Not nothing," the Admiral replied, voice quiet but unwavering. "We watch. We gather. The longer they think we are blind, the more careless they will become. When we strike, it must be final." The silence that followed was tense, a rope stretched thin. Finally, Nair spoke. "And if they succeed before then?" Vayner's gaze flicked to the viewport, where the neutron star pulsed faintly. "They won't, because glaciers move slowly, yes, but they also grind everything in their path, given time." 2 days later, suspicion turned tangible. During an informal session, the assembly's surface cracked. Counselor Threx Viral stood before the chamber, carapace shimmering with calculated indignation. "Delegates," he began, voice carrying, "we reviewed the Earth archives. We found voids, entire records absent, entire crises without resolution. Humanity claims triumph over adversity, but the evidence collapses under scrutiny. Are we to entrust the Federation's future to a species whose past is built on myth?" A wave of whispers rolled across the chamber. Some delegates nodded grimly. Others frowned with doubt. Vayner stepped forward. His presence was controlled, but each word struck with clarity. "Records missing. Yes, but ask yourselves, who profits from their absence? Humanity has nothing to gain by burying proof of survival. Those who fear us, however, have everything to gain by painting us as liars." Threx's mandibles clacked sharply. "You accuse without names, without evidence. A tactic as crude as your species' rise." Vayner met his gaze. "I name no one. I ask only that you remember. Absence of record is not absence of truth. The ruins of Earth stand still. We invite you to see them. Walk the cities rebuilt from dust. Touch the rivers carved back from poison. Erase files, and still the stone remembers." The chamber stilled. His challenge carried weight, physical, undeniable. Yet doubt lingered, carefully sown. Later, beyond the chamber's crystalline walls, a different theater unfolded. Haroon moved cautiously through Federation's data vault, guided by a sympathetic archivist who owed Earth a quiet favor. The archivist, a slender being of light, whispered through vibrating chords, "You seek ghosts, but ghosts leave trails." Haroon nodded. Together, they traced residue of the tampering. It was elegant, seamless, until one careless fragment appeared, buried deep. A signature glyph, KORH in origin. He froze. "Threx." The archivist dimmed nervously. "Speak nothing yet. Knowledge without timing is a blade too early drawn." Haroon copied the fragment and concealed it within his pad. The proof existed, but fragile as glass. One shard in a sea of manipulated silence. Back in quarters, Haroon presented it to Vayner and Nair. "It's not enough to convict," Haroon admitted, "but it's a trace. The glyph is old, one used by KLYRH data artisans, too specific to dismiss." Nair's eyes burned. "We bring it forward, force Threx to answer." Vayner studied the glyph, silent for a long moment. Then he said, "No, we wait. A single crack is not collapse. We need the avalanche." Nair's frustration flared. "Patience again? Admiral, the Council believes us liars while you speak of glaciers." He looked at her then, eyes steady, voice like tempered steel. "And yet, Commander, the glacier's still here." Her anger cooled under his calm. Haroon, though, leaned in, voice firm. "Then when do we move?" "When Threx believed the Council ready to decide," Vayner answered. "When his certainty blinds him. Then we reveal not just one crack, but the fractures he thought hidden. The weight of his strategy settled over them. Harsh, but unshakable. Outside their chambers, the Federation's halls whispered. Delegates aligned in clusters, suspicion thick in every glance. Some leaned toward containment, others resisted. The assembly teetered, fragile as ice under strain. And in the shadows, Threx pressed harder, accelerating his work. Records disappeared faster. Whispers spread wider. Seeds of fear sprouted into roots. He believed victory close, the human case collapsing beneath him. But far above, Elias Vayner stood at the viewport again, watching the neutron star's pulses. His reflection gazed back, patient, still but resolute. "Let him run," he murmured to himself. The faster the mountain crumbles, the louder the glacier's voice. The star flared once more as though answering, and in that silent flash, the path ahead hardened into resolve. Humanity would endure the sabotage. Humanity would expose it. And when the moment came, the Federation would see not chaos, but inevitability. The glacier had begun its slow descent. The assembly gathered under the pulse of the neutron star once again. Its radiation glimmered faintly through the crystalline walls, like a cosmic metronome counting down toward decision. The chamber was crowded, alive with tension. Delegates filled their tiers, their voices low, conspiratorial. Counselor Threx Viral stood prominent among them, his carapace polished to a mirror sheen. His confidence was palpable. Weeks of careful erasure had hollowed humanity's record, and he smelled the endgame. "Counselors," he began, his tone calculated. "Our Federation was forged to prevent chaos. Yet before us stands a species whose history is more fire than reason, more calamity than wisdom. They claim survival, yet offer no proof. Their archives empty, their claims unverifiable. We must act now, before they act upon us." The chamber stirred. Some murmured agreement. Others frowned with unease. Admiral Elias Vayner rose slowly from his station. He did not hurry, did not bristle. He stood as if rooted, his voice measured, calm, yet carrying weight that bent the silence toward him. "Counselors, you hear of absence. You see erased lines where stories should stand. And you are told this absence is proof of falsehood. But I ask, when a mountain casts no shadow, do you assume it never stood? Or do you ask who moved the light?" The chamber fell still. Vayner's words were not fire. They were ice, creeping, deliberate. Threx's mandibles clacked sharply. Poetry will not restore missing records. "No," Vayner replied, "but truth will." He gestured toward the hollow platform. Haroon, standing above with the delegation's aides, activated projection. A glyph shimmered into view. KLRH in origin, buried within the Federation archives. Enlarged, it pulsed faintly, a signature left by clumsy haste. "This mark," Haroon announced, "is the residue of tampering. Federation records did not collapse by chance. They were struck by hands skilled in erasure, but not flawless. The trace is KLRH." A ripple surged across the chamber. Delegates whispered fiercely, some swiveling toward Threx with suspicion, others demanding explanation. The KLYRH counselor stiffened. His mandibles twitched. "Forgery," he spat. "Convenient to accuse your accuser." Vayner did not raise his voice. "If it is forgery, let the Assembly's auditors test it. If it is false, let humanity fall." But if it is true, then it is not Earth on trial. It is you. The silence that followed was jagged. Delegates shifted, calculating. The arbiter struck the rod, demanding calm, but the seed had been planted and it rooted fast. In the corridors beyond, chaos boiled. Delegates broke into factions, some demanding immediate investigation, others urging delay. Rumors spread like cracks across ice. Humanity's position, once fragile, had begun to thicken into something harder. Commander Nair walked beside Vaynor, her tension barely restrained. That glyph won't bury him. He'll twist it, call it fabrication, stall until suspicion cools. Vaynor's expression remained composed. He will stall, yes, and in stalling he will overreach. The glacier does not strike. It waits until mountain leans too far. Haroon joined them, his voice low but urgent. Admiral, more records vanish daily. If the council delays too long, will be erased entirely before truth wins out. Vaynor stopped, turned to face both aides. His tone was firm. Then we do not rely on records. We rely on what cannot be erased, witness. The following day, the chamber filled again. Vaynor requested a rare allowance, direct testimony. The arbiter, intrigued by his restraint thus far, granted it. When the floor opened, Vaynor spoke not of archives but of Earth itself. He described walking the scarred coastlines where cities had drowned and been rebuilt stone by stone. He spoke of forests regrown where ash once smothered soil. He recalled the silence after machine wars, broken only by the sound of hammers rebuilding homes. His words were not embellished. They were lived. And as they translated into 1,000 tongues, even the most skeptical delegates leaned forward, listening. Finally, he said, I invite you to see it. Send your envoys to Earth. Walk where I have walked. Touch the scars that stand in stone and steel. Files may vanish, but the world remains. Murmurs swelled. Curiosity, doubt, a spark of possibility. For many species, testimony was sacred. Lived memory carried more weight than numbers on a file. Threx, sensing ground slipping beneath him, lashed back. A theater of ruins. You parade rubble as proof of glory. Survival among wreckage is not triumph. It is infestation. Vaynor's gaze fixed on him, steady. Infestation does not rebuild. Infestation does not endure collapse and still rise. We do not spread without end, counselor. We hold, we rebuild, we wait. That is our nature. You mistake fire for glacier. One burns fast, the other remakes the world. The chamber's silence was thunderous. The metaphor, once spoken, spread like frost. Delegates whispered it to one another, glacier, not fire. That night, tension coiled into Threx's private halls. He struck his aides with fury, mandibles snapping. Too soon, one dared to say. You pressed too soon. The glyph. Silence, Threx snarled. Yet beneath his rage, unease gnawed. The human had turned patience into weapon and worse, into story. And stories were harder to kill than records. Back in Earth's chambers, Nair finally allowed herself a thin smile. You cracked him. He's rattled. Haroon leaned against the console, cautious, but not defeated. His claws are still deep. If the council delays, he'll regroup. Vaynor regarded them both. His tone carried neither triumph nor warning, but certainty. The cracks are widening. He believes he fights a flame, but it is ice beneath him. Let him thrash. Each strike weakens his ground. He turned to the viewport once more, where the neutron stars pulse carved shadows across the chamber. The glacier unfolds slowly, but once it moves, nothing stands. The assembly chamber pulsed with tension thicker than atmosphere. Delegates filled their tears in silence. Every eye fixed on the dais. The time for argument had passed. Today, judgment would fall. The High Arbiter's crystalline rod struck once, a sharp chime that silenced even whispers. The Federation convenes for decision on Earth standing. Counselor Threx Viral and Admiral Elias Vaynor, present your final words. Threx moved first, sweeping forward with a predator's certainty. His carapace gleamed under the chamber lights, mandibles spread wide. Counselors, he declared, voice hard as steel. Our charge is survival. Humanity speaks of endurance, yet their history is littered with collapse. Their archives are fractured, their proof erased. They ask you to trust their word when their word is all they offer. This is not strength. It is danger. Humanity will not stop at survival. They will expand, consume, destabilize. Containment is mercy. Refusal is folly. His words cracked through the hall like whiplash. Delegates stirred uneasily, nodding at the force of his certainty. Then Admiral Vayner rose. He did not stride. He did not posture. He stepped into the center slowly, hands loose at his sides, his voice calm but carrying as though the chamber itself leaned to hear him. "Counselors," he began, "you have been told humanity is fire, that we flare bright and reckless, burning all around us. But look closer. Fire dies. It consumes itself. Yet we remain." He let the silence hold, steady as stone. "You are shown missing records and told they prove weakness. But I ask you this. When ruins stand, when scars remain visible, do you need a record to believe they exist? You can touch the proof with your own hands. Earth invites you to do so. Erase our files. Erase our numbers. Our survival still carves itself into stone, river, and sky." A murmur moved through the chamber. Some nodded. Others leaned forward, drawn not by volume but by the weight of lived truth. Vayner's eyes fixed on Threx. "You fear we will spread like fire. But you mistake us. Humanity is not fire. We are glacier. We move slowly, unseen, until the moment comes when the ground itself shifts. We do not conquer by speed. We endure. We hold. And endurance changes everything it touches." The phrase, "we are glacier," whispered across the tiers like frost spreading over glass. Delegates repeated it in their own tongues, testing its shape. Threx's mandibles snapped in fury. Pretty metaphors. But glaciers crush as well. What you call patience, I call inevitable conquest. Vayner did not flinch. Glaciers carve mountains, yes, but they do not destroy recklessly. They shape, they create valleys, rivers, fertile ground. They endure not to consume, but to transform. That is our nature. That is why we are still here. The chamber quieted. His words hung there, weight pressing harder than accusation. The arbiter raised a rod. "Delegates, prepare for vote." But before the signal fell, a voice cut through, a delegate of the avian Vrila. Her wings flickered with unease. "High Arbiter, before judgment, I request clarity. The glyph presented by Earth, has it been verified?" Gasps rippled. The Arbiter hesitated, then nodded toward the auditor's tier. A luminous figure rose, voice resonant. "It has been examined. It is genuine. Its origin is KLYRH." The chamber erupted. Delegates turned, wings, scales, and tendrils flaring. All eyes bore down on Threx. The counselor reared, mandibles clattering. "Sabotage! Fabrication! You would damn my people with scraps." But his voice faltered beneath the sudden tide. Doubt now clung to him like shadow. Vayner did not speak. He simply stood, still as stone, while the glacier's weight shifted. The arbiter struck the rod thrice. "Silence. Delegates, cast your votes." Light spread across the chamber, each delegate's decision shining into the crystalline lattice above. Streams of color wove together. Some crimson with fear, some blue with faith, some pale with uncertainty. Slowly, the pattern resolved. The verdict was clear. Earth would not be contained. Oversight, yes. Scrutiny, heavy, but sovereignty remained intact. The arbiter's voice carried finality. The Assembly recognizes Earth as sovereign member. Their fleets stand under their command. This is a decision of the Federation. A wave of sound swept the chamber. Anger, relief, resignation. Humanity had survived the trial. Outside, in the quiet of Earth's chambers, Nair exhaled for the first time in hours. "We did it. They voted with us." Haroon leaned heavily against the console, almost disbelieving. It should have been impossible. But the glyph, without it. It wasn't the glyph, Vayner said softly. Both turned toward him. He stood by the viewport, the neutron star's pulse painting his profile in cold light. "It was the story," he continued. "They feared fire. We showed them glacier. Fear shifts when you name it wrong. Nair allowed herself a smile, rare and sharp. You always knew. No, Vayner admitted. I only knew that patience would outlast panic. The rest followed. Haroon straightened. Threx won't stop. He'll dig deeper, find new angles. Vayner nodded. Of course. Mountains do not collapse in a single crack. But today, the first fracture spread, and glaciers never stop. In his private chamber, Threx raged. He shattered consoles, shredded banners, his aides cowering in silence. Yet beneath fury, dread coiled tight. Humanity had not burned out as he predicted. They had waited, endured, and turned patience into strength. The image of the glacier gnawed at him. He had mocked it, but could not deny its weight. He whispered to himself, mandibles trembling. Slow, patient, unstoppable. Back at the viewport, Vayner remained still long after his aides departed. The neutron star pulsed, steady, eternal. He placed one hand against the glass. The Federation had seen humanity's scars. It had tested their resolve. And in reply, Earth had spoken not with fire, but with ice, unhurried, relentless, undeniable. The Admiral's voice was almost a whisper. We do not rush. We do not burn. We endure, and in time they will see what that means. Beyond the chamber, the stars stretched endless. The glacier had begun its slow descent, and nothing in the galaxy would stand unchanged.